Hi, welcome to my video. Today I'm going to show you how to create pivot table in MS Excel Spreadsheet. Have you ever had a large table of raw data and you want to subtotal or summarize the raw data? For example, over here I have a table of my inventory and I want to know the total inventory value by departments. So over here is by individual items, but I want it to be subtotal by department. I can use pivot table to summarize or subtotal my raw data. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can subtotal data in MS Excel. You can use functions, you can use the subtotal command, or you can use pivot table. So choose the one that is most flexible and feels most convenient in your own environment and the one that gives you the level of detail that you want. So here I'm going to show you how to use pivot table. So pivot table in essence is a way for you to summarize or subtotal a table of raw data. It is one of the more flexible and interactive feature of subtotaling in MS Excel. How do I create pivot table? You can go to the insert menu and use the pivot table button or command to create the pivot table. Let's just jump into how it's done. So I'm going over to my inventory table. Step number one is for you to select the whole table. But if your table is a contiguous table, you can just click inside the table in any cell. So I'm just going to place my selection inside the table. So once I've done that, click on Insert. Let me just zoom in. Insert, and over to the left hand side, you will see the pivot table command or button. So click on that button. I'm just going to do that. When you click on the pivot table command, a dialog box, Create Pivot Table, will appear. So here is the table or database that you have selected, and I'm going to create my pivot table or subtotal in a new worksheet. So once I've done that, just click on OK. So when you do that, what happens is a new worksheet is created next to the original worksheet of the inventory list. How do you create the subtotal? Now the answer to that question is you use these four boxes to create the summary or the subtotal. Let me just zoom in. You use these four boxes to create the subtotal or the summary by dragging and dropping the columns into the respective boxes. So these are the column names of the original table. So how do I do that? First, what I need to do is I need to drag and drop whichever column that I want to summarize or subtotal. In our case, it is the inventory value column because I want the inventory value for each department or by departments. So what I need to do is I need to drag this column here, inventory value, into that last box. Let me just go over to my pivot table worksheet. So here are the four boxes again. So I need to put inventory value inside this box. This is the calculation box. The last of the four boxes at the bottom right hand corner is the calculation box. It's titled as values. So whatever uh, items or fields in my table, I need to drag and drop that I want a subtotal, I need to drag and drop into this box over here. So for our case, it's inventory value. So drag and drop inventory value into the values box. And as you can see, when you do that, the inventory value, you are given the lump sum of the inventory value. So in effect, the inventory value have been subtotaled, or in this case, total. So put anything that you want to count or subtotal into this box. Next, we mentioned that we want it to be by department. So you need to drag and drop the splitting column. In our case, is department either to the rows box or to the columns box. That will split the lump sum of subtotal into the various items. So I'm going to drag and drop department into the rows box over here. So as you can see in my pivot table, the lump sum of inventory value has been broken down to per department. Now, I mentioned that you can also drag and drop items in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now drag department into the columns box. Let's see what happens to the pivot table. Over to the pivot table. As you can see, you have the same data. What has changed is the orientation of the table. Earlier on, our items, department items were here, but after I've done the change in location of the pivot table, let me just go over to the pivot table. Okay, what after I've done the change of the location of the department column, the department labels appear on top of the values. So the orientation has changed. So that's what happens when you, let me just again go into the pivot table field. So that's what happens when you move items between rows and column box over here. The table orientation changes. So these two boxes are a matter of orientation. Let me just move this back into rows. And again, it looks like this. Just zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Now, what I'm going to show you next is to highlight to you that you are not restricted to just one item per box. You can put a few items in a few of these boxes at one time. So to give you an example, let me just go over to the box. I'm going to put the discontinued column into this box over here, and let's see what happens. I'm going to drag and drop over here. As we know, when we put things in the columns or the rows box, it will split up the whatever value you put inside this box. So in this case, the total value of inventory item has been split into by department and further by discontinued or not discontinued. So as you can see, the subtotals are split in that manner. So that's what happens when you put more than one item into these boxes. I can also put discontinued over here. I'm going to drag and drop below department. So as we know, when we move things between these two boxes, the orientation or the format of table changes, but not the data. So what I'm going to see here is basically department, department, and then below each department, you can see it's not discontinued, or rather it's not discontinued or discontinued. So split into the two various uh, discontinuation aspect of the data of the inventory item. So it's a matter of table format or orientation. I'm going to move that back up. Discontinued here. I'm going to move that back up, and automatically, as you can see, the table now is in the X and Y format again. So that's what happens when you move items between these two boxes. The format or the orientation of table changes, number one. And number two, what I've just shown you is that you are not restricted to just one single item per box. You can put a few items in a few boxes as long as your subtotal is easily readable and makes sense. So let me just zoom out to show you how it looks like. So that's it, folks. That's how you make use of pivot table to summarize or subtotal your table of raw data. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like this video, and also drop some comments in the comment section of this video, and subscribe to this channel if you've not already done so, and also hit the notification icon so that you'll be notified of any new videos, and also share this video with anyone whom you think might benefit from it.